What is going on, everybody? I am back today to talk about a film that is a few years older now, that I saw on a couple of lists and some people recommended it as just an absurdist comedy that sounded like something right up my alley. And this film is from the same director as a movie that I reviewed last year called Smoking Causes Coughing, which I was not the biggest fan of. I liked a lot of ideas of it and I liked a lot of the absurdity surrounding it, but I didn't think the execution was perfect. And he also directed a film I watched a long time ago called Rubber, about a tire that makes people's heads explode. And so because I knew that it was the same director, I was 100% on board to watch one of his movies because I love that he commits to these crazy bits and that the movies are just wild and absurd. And so the film I'm going to be discussing with you today is called Deerskin. Deerskin is directed by Quentin Dupieux. A man's obsession with owning the designer deerskin jacket of his dreams leads him to turn his back on his humdrum life in the suburbs, blow his life savings, and even turn him to crime. So I was very excited to watch this movie, not only because of the ridiculous premise behind it, but Jean Dujardin, who a lot of people know from The Artist. He's a really well-known French actor. And Adèle Haenel from Portrait of a Lady on Fire and Celine Sciamma's Water Lily. She's been in a ton of movies. Having this incredibly stacked of a cast made me really looking forward to watching this movie. And it's pretty much exactly what I thought it was going to be. It is absolutely absurd. It's off the rails. And I think it's a lot more effective than some of his other movies that I've seen previously. It's a very simple premise that just kind of grows and grows as you watch the movie and gets more and more absurd. And I love that he's able to stick to the bit in this movie. And I'm excited to talk about it a little bit with you today. So at the beginning of the film, we're introduced to George, played by Jean Dujardin, and we see him out driving and he goes into like a rest stop bathroom and takes his jacket off and tries to flush it down the toilet. And he drives to this house in the middle of nowhere, and this guy pulls a deerskin jacket out of this trunk on the ground and sells it to him for an absurd amount of money. It seems like it's his entire savings that he spends on this jacket, and he is obsessed with it. He thinks it's the coolest thing in the entire world, so he ends up driving away and going to this small town and staying at this hotel, and he doesn't have any money, but he manages to convince the hotel owner to hold his wedding ring as a form of collateral. And he says, "Oh, my credit card's not working, I'll be able to pay you in the next couple days." So the guy takes it because of how much the ring is worth, and we see our lead character having conversations with his jacket, and how the jacket tells him that it wants to be the only jacket on the planet. It wants to be the only jacket worn, and he wants George to be the only person wearing a jacket. He starts filming around the town, and he goes to this bar one night and meets Denise, played by Adèle Haenel, and she is working at this bar, and she sees him having this camcorder and that he's shooting stuff, and she says, "I'm actually a film editor and I want to work in movies." And he says, "Well, maybe I'll give you some material, but I'm working on this movie right now. My producers are in Siberia, they don't have any money." And she's like, "Oh, well, I can give you some money." So she starts giving him money, and he starts going around town filming people giving him their jackets and saying, "I swear to never wear a jacket again." And the entire movie is the two of them working together to film this thing. And as they're filming it, things get progressively more out of hand. So if you couldn't tell by the plot description I just gave you for this movie, it is one of the most absurd things I've ever watched. For starters, the performances here are fantastic. I think what Jean Dujardin has to do in this movie, especially just how wild and crazy his character is and just how absurd the performance has to get. He's really committed to the bit, and I love how as things get crazier, he adds more deerskin items to his ensemble, like a hat and gloves and pants, and it just gets more and more out of control. Adèle Haenel is just an incredible actress. Anything I've seen her in, she's so committed, and she's really funny in this movie, and I really liked her performance a lot. The movie's shot pretty well. It's not anything super spectacular, but I think the attention to detail and the cinematography is exactly what it needs to be to make this movie successful. I was really taken by surprise, sort of, at how violent this movie got. I've seen some of this director's other work, so I know his films have been violent in the past, but because of how this movie started, when the intense violence starts, I wasn't really ready for it, and how it kind of ramps up to 1,000 comes out of nowhere. Like, you're sitting here watching, and things just get progressively more out of control. And that's something that I really like, is that this movie isn't necessarily trying to say anything super complex. It's just this guy who is incredibly obsessed with this jacket and gets so up in his head about it. There is this really interesting element to the movie about how him and his wife are going through a separation. We don't actually ever see his wife or hear her, but we know she cuts off his bank account, and there's clearly something going on to where he has fixated on this part of his life for some very specific reason. And it's really funny to see his interactions, like when people don't act all that excited about his jacket or something, he gets really offended. And there's a lot of really great comedic beats in the movie, and I just love this. Thing's about an hour and 15 minutes, hour and 16 minutes. It's a really short runtime of a movie, but what I really like about it is that it utilizes its runtime effectively. I think there's some moments early on in the film that kind of overstay their welcome. It takes a little bit to get going, but once it settles in and it's there, it's a really enjoyable experience. And I don't have a lot more I want to say about it, because if you've never watched this movie before, I think it's much more fun if you just go in as blind as possible and watch it. But I was incredibly entertained, and I think it is 100% worth your time to watch. So if you've seen Deerskin, did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I thought this movie was hilarious. I thought it was really well acted, and I 100% think it is worth your time. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.